All right. Hey everyone, welcome back to the stream. Today, we're going to be diving into Reaktor, looking at a little bit more of a complex topic. We're going to be talking about creating your very first kick drum in Reaktor, which is pretty exciting because every song that you've probably heard on the radio or every song that you've probably heard probably has a kick drum in it at some point holding the rhythm. And today, we're going to break down how to design that kick drum using Reaktor blocks. So we're essentially going to be designing our very own kick sound that you can use in your very own productions. So to start off, let's dive right in. This is perfect for sound designers, perfect for producers, and anyone who wants to design their own custom sounds. Um, so first things first, we dived into Reaktor. I have a project open that I've already pre-built out. Don't get too intimidated by the panels. We can go through these and explain what we did. So first of all, the goal here is to create a kick drum. And when we're creating a kick drum, we're going to have three different layers. We're going to have the body, we're going to have the snap, and we're going to have the rattle. Just to break that down for you, if we mute the other parts that we have three different layers. So we have three different oscillators going at one time. So right here, this is one oscillator. We look on here, we have another oscillator going here. That's a second oscillator. And then a third oscillator on the third layer right here. That's a third oscillator. They're all plugging into a mix 4 to get the left and right signals and going out to our two left and right speakers. So that completes the signal flow. But now, when we think of a kick drum, we have an ADR. We have ADSR. We know that stands for attack, decay, sustain, and release. But we only really need the ADR of that to create a kick drum sound. So that would be attack, decay, and release. The reason we don't need sustain is because when you think of a kick drum sound, we often don't have sustain in our sound. There's not a kick drum doesn't go boom and then hold out. It's really like a boom, boom, like a sharp attack. So that's what we're going for. We've really reduced our sustains on our envelopes to mimic that real sound in reality that we get from a kick striking a skin of a drum. So if we go to the first layer, we're going to go to the first layer. This is the body layer of our kick drum. And the body layer, essentially, it is responsible for providing that pitch, that fundamental frequency that we need for our kick drum. And it's often best to use a sine wave because it's a pure sound, and we need that pure sound to help us start and generate the right pitches for our kick drum. So we generally start off with a kick drum with a sine wave. So we have a sine wave right here. I'm just going to play it. By itself, it already sounds like a kick drum, pretty much. I'm already playing it in a low octave. So right here, just to break it down, we're connecting to a note in, which is getting signal from our keyboard below me, and that's triggering this oscillator. This oscillator is then connected up to a pitch envelope, and the pitch envelope is causing a slight deviation in pitch through providing some positive modulation right here. Every time I strike the kick drum, we're seeing that positive modulation, which is just a little bit right here. It's juddering the actual pitch of the kick to go upward, just like how you would get a realistic sound when you strike a kick drum. You get a initial thump with a decay. So we want that initial attack to be sharp and fast on the pitch. So our attack is all the way down here at instant attack. Our decay is slightly decayed because we want to decay to the sound, or else it wouldn't be realistic. It would just be a thump, and the sound would disappear. Then our sustain is all the way down. It's not up, because if we put our sustain up on the pitch, it's going to hold out the pitch, and then that gives us an awkward sound, and the pitch stays up, and that's not realistic to a kick drum sound in real life. It doesn't just, we don't hit it, and then it constantly rings out at a high pitch. We hit it, and it slowly, quickly decays to a actual kick. And a release, we don't want it too long because we know that the kick drum sound doesn't actually sustain forever. It doesn't release forever. So as soon as we could let off the kick, as soon as our thudder or our I don't know what the kick drum stick is called, but as soon as we hit it with the beater and release the beater, the sound stops. Think of us releasing the beater as our release. So that's our release. Then we have our amp envelope. Again, we reduced our attack to 0. Our decay is around the same setting. Our sustain is at 0. Our decay is around the middle. Our sustain is at 0, and our release is around a similar setting for our amp, for our volume. So we don't want the volume to really peak too high. We also don't want it to sustain the volume. So if we turn the sustain up, you can hear the volume going up in pitch, which is really unnatural sounding to create a kick. It doesn't get louder and louder when you hit it in real life, so it shouldn't get louder and louder as we release from the kick. It should get quieter. So that sums up what we need to do for our body of our kick sound. The next stage we have in our kick, we have our snap stage. So the snap is essentially the layer we provide to the click, the layer we provide that provides the click, so the transient of the sound. So think of those high mids, the top end of the kick, the initial transient that we hear the click before we actually hit the body. That's what we're providing when we provide that kick click. So we need a very short envelope for this, and we don't really want it to be long, and we don't really want the length to be very noticeable in the kick sound. We want to hear the body majority of the time, but we want to make it so that we can it's more of a feeling than an actual sound. So I'm going to show you what that sounds like. You can kind of hear it in the background. I'm going to mute it out so we can only hear the snap of the kick, or the initial transient, we can call it. You can hear that little click sound. So we've created that click sound using a oscillator with some noise, with some drive, drove up the coarse pitch, and changed the wave shape slightly over time. We've added a pitch envelope because with the same settings, or very similar settings to our first initial sound for our body, attack is low, attack is an instant, decay is low, sustain on this sound, we want to sustain a little bit. We could actually turn it down if we wanted to make it so that our pitch stays relatively the same. And then our release is, for our pitch, is pretty much in the middle. For our amp, for our volume side, we want our attack to be an instant, decay to be a medium decay, sustain to be no sustain on our sound, release to be pretty non-existent. So when you put that together with our kick beater sound or body sound, we get a sound like that. Before my sustain was all the way up, it makes the sustain slightly longer than the actual kick or body sound. So I want to reduce that so you don't hear that transient bleeding through behind the kick. So if I reduce that a little bit, that's a little bit better. And we get more of a nicer kick sound. So we can also filter that sound, that initial, that snap. We can also filter it with our filter. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong layer. So that's actually on our third layer. So I'm going to move this block down. That's for our third layer. So this is for our second layer, and that can stay there. So we're not going to filter the sound at all. We're just going to keep it as it is going through the amp, and you can hear it coming through. I've also reduced my amplifier modulation depth so that the sound is not so clicky. But I could use that, and we could see what it sounds like with just the body and the snap. It's even more powerful, gives some more snappy, immediate kick. So I like it somewhere around there. It feels more natural to me. Gives me a natural kick sound. So that's our first two layers of our kick. So that covers our first layer, which is right here. Then our second layer would be here. This would be our second layer, the highlighted layers. And then, so that's our first right here, just to show you one more time. Our first layer is here. Our second layer would be here. And finally, our third layer is connecting up to noise generator. So our noise generator, as it sounds, it connects up to a noise generator. So this helps us to generate a random noise that is then filtered through a multi-filter and through our VCA. And finally, we can clean up the sound some more by going through a variable filter at the end. So this is what it sounds like. It's another noise that should be even more subtle. It's the rattle noise that we hear in the kick sound. So you hear initial transient attack, the body sound, and the final rattle off of the kick, which is the reverberation that we hear after we strike the actual kick skin. So think about striking a real kick drum. In this case, it rattles when you hit the kick drum, and we use a noise envelope to modulate and recreate this in a very, very subtle way by providing that noise to modulate. So I'm going to show you what that sounds like and then explain a little more. So we can hear that subtle, very subtle noise. It should be even subtler than the actual snap because it's a decaying noise. It's a noise that's at the end of the actual body. So we have snap, body, and rattle. So they work hand in hand, but we don't want those sounds to be so abrasive and in our face that it takes away from the actual body of our kick. So I forgot to mention, we can also shape that rattle if we back it up with our oscillator by changing the waveforms. That's the initial transient that we hear. And then we can go back down to our actual rattle, we can shape the snap with our waveform. And then our rattle is our final layer of our kick. So that's what our rattle sounds like by itself. You can hear it. You can see the volume for left and right is going up here and here. And you can see that it's connected to a noise generator right here, and then followed by a multi-break this is a filter, and then we're connecting to a VCA and another filter at the end. So we are going to show you what that sounds like. All together, it sounds like this. And we could take it a step further, maybe connecting it to a clock, let it play for us, and finally carving out our sound at the end with some possible distortion. I'm going to, just for fun, I'm going to add an 8-step, route everything through here. So all of our pitch connections go through there. All of our gate connections. Then we go to the second layer, take our gate connections. And yep, that's right. Then we take our next layer, we grab our gate connection, and that looks pretty good to me. Then we connect our clock. It's going to provide us some timing. And finally, we connect our pitch to our pitch. So let's see if we're getting any sound to be generated. Let's initiate our clock. And we're getting a kick. And we're getting a kick. our kick sound. So congratulations on creating your first kick sound. I'm going to reduce the rattle a little bit, because I noticed we're getting a little bit of a interesting rattle. So we got a better rattle with that. So we hear that on our solo by itself. It's very subtle in the background. We're getting a rattle. Got our click. Got our rattle. Got our snap. And got our body. And there you have it, your finished kick. Feel free to experiment. Take a look at this. Let me know in the comments if you would like me to send you this patch. Just comment kick, and I'll be happy to send you over the patch. And I will see you. Keep sound designing, and I'll see you in the next sound design session. Peace out.